Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Psych Crusader. I'm going to be doing it alone tonight. For those of you who are new subscribers, I've had quite a few lately that may not understand how my page works. So, the Psych Crusader is something that this is actually like something I'm very passionate about is mental health. My college background is in mental health. So, this is just, my way of kind of giving back and maybe helping some people and hopefully bringing some awareness, to people who are lost and kind of stuck in these kinds of situations. So this is kind of like my little side project that I do outside of my political stuff, just to show that I'm human and I care about people. So if you like the show, like, subscribe, and ding the bell. And let's try to learn a few things and have some fun along the way. So today's episode, and we just finished going through. I think we did like 3 episodes of what did we just do? Borderline personality disorder. So we went through a 3-part series of that. We'll see how far we get on this, but today we're going to talk about anxiety disorders. Hey, G-Bro, thank you for coming back. So this is my side project I was just talking about. So I do mental health. That's my background. And so this is kind of my way of giving back, even though I'm kind of in the corporate world now and don't use my degree a whole lot. But so this is my way of kind of giving back to people. So today's going to be anxiety disorders. There's several different anxiety disorders that we're going to cover, and I highly doubt we get this all done in one segment. It'll probably be a series like I have been doing on this. So there are a lot of symptoms when we're looking at anxiety disorders, and just like what we found with the other disorders that we've talked about in the past, like borderline personality disorder, clinical depression, PTSD, just to name bipolar disorder, some of the ones we've already covered. A lot of these symptoms are kind of the same. We're seeing them, they're reoccurring. So we're going to go over them and we'll see which ones are reoccurring. So you're going to tend to have this nervous feeling when you have anxiety. I know when my anxiety hits, I have that. I probably have all of these symptoms. I pretty much have them all. And I think probably a lot of people can relate to that as well. We're going to go through this like kind of commonness where everyone's like, wow, I felt that. I felt that. I felt that. So you're going to have this nervous feeling. You're going to be like restless or like tense. And that's okay. And that's not like a doomsday scenario to feel that way. So you should still be able to manage, even though you have this nervousness. You have a sense of impending danger or panic or like a doom. That's what we're talking about, doomsday scenario. Now, this is where kind of your emotions get a little bit more worked up, and you're getting to this point where you're thinking a little bit more aggressively. So that's something that's when you kind of need to start to pay attention to go, you got to be honest with yourself. That's the main one. And we talk about that a lot in the show, is that you're not going to be able to help yourself if you're not honest with yourself. So we're going to, really look at this panic situation and the danger feeling that you get and try to prevent it from being a doomsday scenario. You're going to have increased heart rate. That's pretty typical. If you have anxiety, you're in this panic mode, your heart rate's going to go up. It's just a natural thing that's going to occur, and that's okay. If you are older and you already have heart problems or high blood pressure, you need to really pay attention to those things and see your doctor as soon as possible. You could start to hyperventilate, which is pretty normal for anxiety. I had anxiety one time so bad that I thought I was having a heart attack, and I went to the hospital and they said, you're having an anxiety attack. So I couldn't breathe, and nothing in my body wasn't working right at all, but they end up, giving me, some medications, and then I calmed down a little bit and was able to go home a few hours later. So you can go through like sweating, a lot of sweating. I don't really have that problem. Like when I get anxiety, I don't I don't just like sit around and like have like water leaking off all over me. Kind of like some of our politicians testifying in front of Congress, they get anxiety and you just see it on their face. They're just leaking sweat. And so that's a whole other ball game we'll talk about later, is what those tics mean. Trembling. So you could start to tremble. It takes a lot for me to get to that point. Like I get to the point, once upon a time when I was in law enforcement, when you get into like high intensity situations, like you'll start to shake, and it's something you can't control. It's just your body is so tense, and it's so, you feel that adrenaline, and there's nowhere for it to go. So if you just start to shake a little bit, you can also feel weak or tired. That's a symptom of anxiety, which, yeah, I mean, I've gone through some of that similar type of thing. You could also have trouble concentrating or thinking about anything other than the present worry. Like you can't focus on anything other than the task at hand that you're struggling with. I am a task-minded person, so this is a big one for me. I will hyper focus on it until I've either solved the problem or have solved it enough to where I can buy time to worry about it later. You have trouble sleeping. That's pretty common for a lot of people. I think when you go through anxiety, you're going to have a real tough time sleeping because your mind's just going to continually think about what is bothering you. You could have GI problems, so gastrointestinal. I don't understand that one, honestly. I don't. Maybe people do. I don't know. Maybe you get crampy or something. But they're suggesting there's a GI problem. So you have difficulty like controlling your worry. You can't stop thinking about it. You could distract yourself for a minute, but you go right back to that worry. That's a pretty common thing. If it's an issue that you are having a trouble solving, you're going to keep going back to it. You could avoid things that trigger anxiety. Large crowds give me anxiety, so I tend to not go into large crowd areas. I went to watch the Atlanta Falcons play my ex-wife's favorite team, the Browns, one time, and that was like a stress ball for me because I had to watch out, and it's mainly just because of my history. Like I want to make sure every person I'm looking at, are they good guy, bad guy, good guy, bad guy. And so I tend to overanalyze crowds, and it just gives me anxiety because I want to make sure that my kids and my wife are safe. So now let's go into some of the specific anxiety disorders. So the first one we're going to talk about is agoraphobia. Agoraphobia. I don't know, I can't talk today for some reason. Maybe it's because it's Monday. Maybe I should move the show to a different day. Mondays are always rough. I don't want to do anything on Mondays. But agoraphobia is a type of anxiety disorder in which you fear and often avoid places or situations that might cause you to panic and make you feel trapped, helpless, and embarrassed. Just like what we were just talking about. I avoid large crowd areas. I like to, if I'm in a crowd if I'm in a place where there's a lot of people, I would rather there be a place, like if there's space, like if I'm at like a county fair or something like that, where there's a lot of area to where these large crowds are kind of spread out over space, I'm usually okay. But if you put me in real tight places with a lot of people, I tend to panic. I actually do okay in elevators, but just in like large, like open crowd areas, that's a tough one. So that's an anxiety called agoraphobia. It's common, people don't like those kinds of things. Military people usually don't like it. People that have been to prison don't like it. You go through these several different scenarios. Cops usually don't like them. So it's something that can happen if you've had some kind of trauma or something that you've had to deal with in your past, that you had a bad experience being in a large crowd. I would be willing to bet that about anybody around 9/11 would probably have this kind of anxiety, or people at the Las Vegas shooting a few years ago. I would imagine that would probably be a trigger of anxiety for them. So anxiety disorder, the next one, sorry. The next one is anxiety disorder due to medical condition. Uh, so that includes symptoms of intense anxiety or panic that are directly caused by a physical health problem. So, um, if you have a deformity or you lost an arm and, people know you by being a normal figured person and now you're disfigured in some kind of way, that's going to give you anxiety, because you're going to have this hopelessness feeling, and people aren't going to see you the same, so you're going to build up this anxiety because of these medical conditions. um, you can even get sick and you'll get anxiety because if you have a little cold and you're going to be worried about what you still have to go to work or whatever, you're going to worry about what other people are thinking. They're like, oh, is this person, why would they come to work if they have a cold? That's stupid. You're going to get everybody sick. So you're going to have these anxieties, even as simple things as a very common cold. We also have generalized anxiety disorder, and that includes persistent and excessive anxiety and worry about activities or events, even ordinary routine issues. The worry is out of proportion to the actual circumstance, is difficult to control, and affects how you feel physically. It often occurs along with other anxiety disorders or depression. So that's nothing that we're not going to cover. That's why they call it a generalized anxiety disorder. It is very generalized. There's nothing like specific that's going to jump out or anything that's going to kind of isolate itself from the other disorders. This is, in my opinion, I don't think this should be in there, but if you don't like it, blame the Mayo Clinic. So next is going to be panic disorder. So this is going to be one because a lot of people go through this, and just to let everybody know that I do like to do these because as you look at diagnosis, the statistics of diagnosis for just about any disorder, the statistics are very low. Just like anxiety disorder is very common amongst human beings. It's something that humans do. But if you go look at the stats of the amount of people that have a anxiety disorder diagnosis, it's very low. And you'll look at those numbers and you go, wow, why is that so low? Because people generally don't go get a diagnosis. Or it's the same thing with any other bipolar disorder. I feel like I run into a lot of people that potentially could have bipolar disorder, but when I look at at the stats of it, you're looking at like 4% of the population has bipolar disorder. So and the reason why is because people don't go get diagnosed. They think they have this symptom or that symptom, but in reality, when they add it all up, they had 7 symptoms, and it's something that they should have gone and got diagnosed, because then they would have all the tools provided and an understanding for what they're going through and a treatment plan that's going to help them move past it. So I like to do these things just for that factor, because I want people to go, hey, I kind of have some of these things going on, and I want to make sure that I don't feel like an idiot if I go into a psychiatrist's office and ask for help, which you're never going to look like an idiot when you go ask for help. So just go do it. So panic disorder is the next one, and that involves repeated episodes of sudden feelings of intense anxiety and fear or terror that reach a peak within minutes, basically like a panic attack. You may have feelings of impending doom, shortness of breath, chest pains, or a rapid fluttering or pounding heart. They call them heart palpitations. These panic attacks may lead to worrying about them happening again or avoiding situations in which they've occurred. So that's another one where this one can get extreme, and to the point where you have to go into the hospital to get calmed down. And uh, especially when you get to that chest pain and shortness of breath, I have actually experienced that, so I know how that feels. It doesn't feel very good. Uh, you just can't breathe, and like your chest just feels like it's just trying to sink into your body. So I would highly recommend that if you start to feel this way, you need to, go seek help ASAP. Whether it's, going to, a hospital or a treatment center, something, get help somewhere. The next one is selective mutism is a consistent failure of children to speak in certain situations, such as school, even when they can speak in other situations, such as at home with close family members. This can interfere with schoolwork and social functioning. So, this is where we get confused as parents because we have Johnny who, when he's at home, he's very social, he's talkative and all this and all that because he's comfortable at home. He's comfortable around his family and his parents and his siblings. But when he goes to school, he's going through some kind of traumatic experience at school where he just stays quiet. That's why they call it mutism. He becomes mute at school, and generally he'll become an antisocial. And we see that a lot in some of these major school issues that happen, like school shootings. I'm not saying everybody who goes through mutism is a school shooter, but you will see some of these anxieties, these characteristics in those types of situations where they're that's how they slip under the radar, where the parents go, I didn't think he was capable of this, but then the school says, well, he was kind of a little bit different and isolated himself from everybody and didn't really have a social life. Well, this is mutism. Then we have separation anxiety disorder. I have a German Shepherd that has separation anxiety disorder really bad because she does not like to leave my side. As a matter of fact, she's laying right beside me right now. She sleeps right next to my bed. This dog goes everywhere with me. It's a childhood disorder characterized by anxiety that's excessive for the child's developmental level and related to separation from parents or others who have parental roles. So my daughter just had a baby, so it'll be my third grandchild. And I was talking to her the other day, and she was telling me how she's going through that separation anxiety disorder with the baby. The baby, does not want to be with anybody but her, and so it's causing her problems where she's not getting any sleep, and it's creating her own anxiety. So that's something that she's going to have to work on. I hope that she would start to integrate her fiance more on that, and just kind of hand her off and say this is going to be a struggle, but let our kid get used to you. But it's my daughter's first child, and she's like, I'm never letting go of my child. She's kind of going through that right now. She don't ever want to let her go. So she's kind of creating the scenario a little bit. I hope she's not watching. She's going to be mad at me for talking about her. But that's a similar situation. Also, in younger kids, like you see your first child go off to kindergarten or whatever, first day of school, there's going to be a separation anxiety there. If you have to go to work and the child has to go to babysitter, there's going to be a separation anxiety there with whatever parent. Generally, if you're bonded to that kid emotionally, and the child's bonded with you emotionally, you're going to see these situations that are going to happen. So the next one, social anxiety disorder, social phobia. And that involves high levels of anxiety, fear, and avoidance of social situations due to feelings of embarrassment, self-consciousness, and concern about being judged or viewed negatively by others. So it's social phobia, that's exactly what it is. When you think everyone out there is looking at you, and that could potentially be a precursor to schizophrenia, because as we learned in previous episodes, that schizophrenia is very it can be triggered very easily from environmental factors. So if you have social anxiety disorder, you could start to develop a stronger paranoia, which could turn into schizophrenia. So these are things that you have to watch and be very careful of. I know a lot of people who have social phobia. As I get older, the world's too crazy. I'm not trying to go out there. So I've developed a small case of social phobia. I have a tough time being out in public with people, being around people, because you just never know. There's always something. I live in Atlanta, so we have high crime here. So there's always something stupid going on. So substance-induced anxiety disorder is the next one. So this is one that can be generalized on many other disorders. Anytime you're using any kind of extra substance, that's going to cause you some issues. You're going to get imbalanced and things are going to happen. But the Mayo Clinic says it's characterized by symptoms of intense anxiety or panic that are a direct result of misusing drugs, taking medications, being exposed to a toxic substance, or withdrawal from drugs. Okay, so I get it. There's a lot of drinkers out there. I'm in a family full of people that drink. I do not. So anytime if you have a psychiatric condition, especially anxiety disorder or any of the other ones that we've talked about already, that we've learned about, anytime that you're introducing a foreign substance to your body is going to react to it in some type of way. It's the same thing as if you get diagnosed with having anxiety, and then you go to your psychiatrist, and your psychiatrist provides you a prescription for an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety medication, and you take that medication. Generally, it takes a few, like 10 to 14 days for those medications to kick in, because you're bringing in this foreign agent. So your body has to kind of like gurgitate that around to figure out what it is and what it's going to do. It's the same thing with drugs and alcohol. Anytime you bring foreign entities in your body's going to figure out what it is, what it does, and how is it going to react to it. So you have to understand that when you mix substance abuse with psychiatric conditions, generally they do not go hand in hand, and you are going to have issues. Thanks for chiming in, G-Bro. Shauna, welcome to the show. There you are. See, G-Bro came back for some more, but he came on my boring show. Hopefully he keeps coming back. I got the political show on Wednesday. We're going to have more fun on that one. But I'm passionate about this stuff, so I do it. Maybe I help somebody. You never know. So other specified anxiety disorder and unspecified anxiety disorder, they're terms for anxiety or phobias that don't meet the exact criteria for any other anxiety disorders, but are significant enough to be distressed and disruptive. So they don't have to necessarily be defined. If you're not like specifically fitting into any of these categories, I would call it a general anxiety disorder. That's what I would call it. But they say that there's not, if you have one that's not fixed, then it can be considered the other category, which I think they're overdoing it on the categories, my opinion. So let's go through things that if you are experiencing certain things that you need to go see your doctor, because that's important. We can't just ignore some of these things. So if you feel like you're worrying too much and it's interfering with your work, relationships, or other parts of your life, yeah. So if you're developing anxiety and you can't have a common day of functioning of what you're used to, it's time to go get help. And you're going to want to go find a good treatment center that has good counselors, good therapists, and get the help you need. It's going to take a little bit of time for them to get you all situated around, because they're going to ask you 1,000 questions, and they may see you a couple times before they decide to treat you. At the facility back home where I'm from, they do the same thing. They're going to talk to you. They're going to let you talk to their therapist or their counselors for probably 4 sessions. And then eventually when they get you kind of dialed in, they're going to let you see the psychiatrist. Psychiatrist is going to ask you about 20 questions, and he's going to give you a script and send you on your way. And generally that's what happens. Hopefully that's not what happens everywhere, because I'd like to see a little bit more activity out of the psychiatrist, because that's why you guys make big bucks, to really sit down and fix these problems, or try to at least. Another one, if you fear, worry, or anxiety, or the anxiety is upsetting you and difficult to control, that's when you're starting to kind of teeter, you're on controllable and uncontrollable. So if you don't identify it at this point and go seek help, you could fall off the edge, and that's where we're talking about, where you start to have chest pains and stuff like that. You start to have like physical situations going on. If you feel depressed, have trouble with alcohol and drug use, or have other mental health concerns along with anxiety, obviously I would tell you to drop what you're doing and go find some help, because generally there's a lot of people out there that do have double diagnoses or multiple diagnoses, and they don't realize it. So if you have anxiety, chances are you may, if you waited too long, you have probably morphed it into something else by now. And that's something that you have to really, really pay attention to, and find out what you have, what stages you're at. And sometimes the only way you can know that is by going and seeing a professional. And that's what I would recommend that you do. So be cautious. Pay attention to how you're feeling. I know it's cliche, but keep a journal. I have paper around me all the time, so when I start having thoughts, I just jot them down real quick, get it on paper, because that's it's not just an ease of mind, a peace of mind kind of thing. This is me exerting that energy out of my body and onto a piece of paper, to where now I've taken that thought out of my head, I've pushed it through my body, and it's on a piece of paper now. And so once I let go of that paper, and once I let go of that pen, generally it'll give me a little bit of peace for a while. So it's not only because of, well, you want to remember the things that you said, or you want to, talk it out, or, read it later or whatever. This is an energy transfer of negative energy out of your body into your pen, onto your paper. So it's just another way to look at it, if you believe in energy flow and that kind of thing. I do personally. I have a lot of friends that are very, very good at that kind of stuff. Another one, if you think your anxiety could be linked to a physical health problem, yes, go see a doctor, like ASAP. If you're starting to have chest pains and you already take high blood pressure meds, go see a doctor. If you're starting to feel something abnormal, something you're not used to feeling, go see a doctor. Don't wait. Don't guess. Shauna says she prays. Yes, pray. And that's a big one for me too. Prayer is the ultimate healer of this world, in my opinion. If you're a Christian minded person, or even a Muslim minded person, or even a Hindu minded person, or a Buddhist, or whatever, just about every religion has some kind of anxiety relief system. Prayer does that, or meditation does that, and those are very, very good tactics to pick up. So you have suicidal thoughts or behaviors. If this is the case, seek emergency treatment immediately. Let's try not to get it to that point. Let's identify our problems ahead of time. I'm going to get to that, Sean. I'm going to come back to that. But if you are starting to have suicidal thoughts, you need to really start to get your circle around you and seek treatment ASAP. Get your support system. You know what? If you think that you may start to even think that way, or if you're like, man, one more thing and I'm going to fall off the edge, get your support people rounded up now. So that way, when you start to have these moments where you need that extra little bit of help, your support people are already named and they're ready to help you. And all you have to do is pick up the phone. So that's what I would recommend, is that you get your support people in place now. Don't wait until it's too late, because then you're not going to be comfortable enough to ask them for help. But Shauna brought up a good point. She said high peak moments, and when she's really has anxiety, she likes to go in her closet and talk to God. I love that idea. I one thing that Jesus did when he was confused or when he had anxiety, Jesus had anxiety. You know, he had a lot of he didn't have all the answers right off the bat. Sometimes he had to go ask the Father for some help or some guidance. And so what he did was he walked out into the woods and and he would talk to God. And so this isn't this isn't something to be embarrassed about. You know, yeah. And Shauna says it gives her clarity and she can think out her issues. And I think it's a great idea. I think it's a good tactic. Hopefully, maybe that works for some people out there. I would give it a try. Sometimes I like to have that to be in the dark because like too much light will distract me from problem solving. So that makes sense. Um, so there's another excellent tool to use. And that's what we want to do on this show is try to provide you with a few tools to use. So there's not really like a cause of something that causes anxiety disorder. I mean, there is, but there's not like a significant kind of it's not understood, I guess, is what I want to say. And that's basically what the Mayo Clinic says that the cause of anxiety disorders aren't fully understood. Life experiences such as traumatic events appear to trigger anxiety disorders in people who are already prone to anxiety. Inherent traits could also be a factor. It's environmental. So your body is going to create these safe zones. I keep kicking my camera, it's driving me crazy. But your body is going to create this safety net of some sort around you. And so when you start to have anxiety, it's going to put up walls inside your mind to try to protect itself. So when that becomes too much, your vibration is going to get stronger and you're going to exert this anxiety and everyone around you is going to know it because it's exerting a lot of energy. So, you know, if you've gone through a lot of things in your life, like I said, I don't like large groups. So that gives me anxiety. So I've already had events in my life that caused me to not like large groups of people. So that was an environmental factor. And generally anxiety happens from environmental factors. Not saying it can be, they also say it's inherited, but I think just about anybody can inherit anything. It's just a matter of whether or not it's triggered or turned on. So, you know, when the on switch comes on or you go through something that triggers that, that's when you're going to see the enhancement of the disorders that you are starting to exert. So let's talk about some risk factors. So we have trauma. So children who endure abuse or trauma or witness traumatic events are at higher risk of developing an anxiety disorder at some point in life. Adults who experience a traumatic event also can develop anxiety disorders. This is very common. I think just about everybody that is going to watch this is going to say, I have that event in my life that causes my anxiety. And that's okay. And there's nothing wrong with having something that makes you feel that way. Our minds can only handle so much. Our bodies can only handle so much. So we have to, however, be cautious and be able to identify those signs and symptoms, so that way we know how to react to them or what we need to do. What is step B? So you also have stress due to an illness, like what we already talked about. If you have a health condition or serious illness that can cause significant worry about issues such as your treatment and your future. I just got told I have high blood pressure like by my eye doctor, ironically, through the retinal scans. He's like, your blood vessels in your eyes are highly dilated. Let me do your blood pressure. And I was like, way too high. So he told me to go see your doctor like now. And I was like, okay. Um, which I didn't do. But I mean, God chooses. So that's my answer to everything. God leads my path. If God wanted me to go to the doctor, he'd give me a sign that would say, Eric, go to the doctor. Maybe that was the eye doctor. That was the sign. I don't know. But anyway, I didn't do it. I just started eating heart healthy food, and I feel better. But I had anxiety over that. I was like, holy cow. Like they told me I had stage 2, heart issues. So like, or stage 2 high blood pressure. And that's the silent killer. I didn't want that. I want to just, walk around at work and just fall over. So it did give me a little anxiety there for a while, which probably made it worse, but I feel better now. But stress buildup. This is a big one for a lot of people, especially men. A big event or a buildup of smaller stressful life situations may trigger excessive anxiety. For example, a death in the family, work stress, or ongoing worry about finances. Generally, in relationships, when men start to get upset, they are going to bottle those things up because they don't want to um, upset their partner or disagree with their partner. But then what happens is they're just basically building a time bomb inside themselves, and eventually there's nowhere to overflow. So it'll come out at the first person that happens to trigger them that day, and that is something that we have to be cautious of and conscious of. Don't let it get to those points. Find your outlets. Find your safe person that you can talk to. I don't like using safe person because that's a super woke term, but that's exactly what you need though, is a safe person, somebody that's not going to judge you, somebody that's going to let you just dump all that frustration on. Once you dump it, you feel a lot better. Unfortunately, mainly amongst men, we'll hold all those stresses and all those problems in for so long that when we dump it, it's usually in an act of aggression, whether it's verbally or physically, and we've caused damage. So we want to try to avoid those kinds of scenarios where we are going to cause emotional or physical damage to a thing or even the people that you care about. Personality. People with certain personality types are more prone to anxiety disorders than others. Obviously, if you are an antisocial person, you are going to have a lot more anxiety because you generally can't avoid every human being on earth. You're going to have to interact with people, and that could give you anxiety. If you have self-esteem issues, you're going to have anxiety issues because you're going to be thinking that people are judging you all the time. So there are things that will play a factor in your personality that could cause you to adapt anxiety disorders. Now, other mental health disorders. People with other mental health disorders, such as depression, often have anxiety disorder, like we talked about. We have multiple diagnosis that generally is going to enhance something, or you're going to have more issues later. So we want to make sure that we understand that we can evolve an issue into a much more dangerous issue if we let things go, and then you're going to have a multiple diagnosis, or you'll keep both diagnoses at the same time, and then you have even more amplified issues. So we want to pay very close attention to how we behave and how we react to things. Most of the time, if you're just self-conscious of your own actions, and you can kind of think out your thoughts and look at your own reaction to things, that's going to help you develop a bit of an honesty with yourself, and you're going to be able to start to see your patterns and how you deal with things. So I would recommend that you spend a lot of time like observing yourself and really think, like giving yourself like your own therapy in your head. Like, why are you thinking that way? And it's going to sound a bit nutty, but it's worked for me in the past. Like, I talk to myself all the time. Having blood relatives with an anxiety disorder, like said, it could be inherited. So if you have a family full of anxiety ridden family members, It's not because you guys all don't like each other. Like a lot of families think they don't. That's generally, you guys just generally have a lot of anxiety in your bloodline somewhere or in your DNA makeup. And it's just triggered by whatever. Obviously, drugs and alcohol, we've talked enough about that, but those are more risk factors. So there are complications. Having an anxiety disorder does more than make you worry. It can also lead to or worsen other mental and physical conditions, like we've been talking about. I like to highlight these things really well because it's very easy to move a disorder from one stage into a different disorder of another stage, and that's going to cause you problems, especially if you're looking at anxiety disorder this whole time, but you've been evolving it into schizophrenia or clinical depression, and you're not aware of that. And that's when we're going to have some issues, whether it's bipolar or whatever. You're going to evolve it into something, or explosive behavior, things like that. So we want to be very conscious of that and learn that that can happen. My kitties are walking around, distracting me. But depression, which often occurs with anxiety disorder or other mental health disorders. So you can get depressed. Like I said, clinical depression can happen. It just depends on how often and how long it stays, whether or not it turns into actual clinical depression. But you need to pay attention to those things. Know how you feel. Substance misuse, we've talked about that. Trouble sleeping, we've talked about that. Digestive or bowel problems, we've talked about that. I don't get it. I eat pretty decent for the most part, so I don't really have GI problems. Headaches or chronic pain. Now that's something you need to pay attention to because anxiety can trigger things. So if you are generally a high blood pressure person and you're getting up there in age, you're starting to get close to 50, your blood pressure is starting to climb, and you're starting to have headaches, and that could be a sign of something worse. So I highly recommend that everyone pays close attention to their physical health signs when they're going through mental health issues, because you can take situations that may not be that big of a deal and turn them into something that's a much more serious situation. Another one is social isolation. So we've talked a lot about that. I'd recommend that if you have a social isolation issue, maybe try to come out of your shell a little bit. I'm not going to tell you to, go to the most busiest bar in your city and just make a fool out of yourself, so everybody will talk to you. But maybe go to a nice quiet place that has a little, low traffic, going in and out, and just sit down and just watch people. You don't have to interact with anybody, but just get comfortable in a small social setting, to where you can start to gradually adapt yourself to more active social settings that is going to kind of help you kind of get over this anxiety of those kinds of situations. I like to go sit at like town squares and just sit like on a bench and just watch people. It helps me like relax when I'm worked up and I can just see people. And so I look for things like that, little tiny little things where you can kind of train your brain to kind of move in a certain direction. That's one way I would do it. So problems functioning at work or school. Obviously, if you're having a tough time focusing on the things that make you money or the things that are going to make you money in the future, we need to pay close attention to those things. Another one is poor quality of life. That's a big one, and that's the first time we've talked about that in this episode. So poverty tends to cause anxiety. Poverty tends to be a huge trigger for anxiety. So if you're not happy in your life, or if your wife just left you, or your girlfriend, or your boyfriend, or your husband, or your kids just moved off to college, you're not feeling complete anymore, you're going to feel like you have a poor quality of life. Or if you just got fired from your job and now you can't pay your bills, or you got laid off, or you just don't make enough money for the lifestyle that you want, or even for the city that you live in. Inflation went up, it hurt a lot of people. So you're going to feel like life is just getting to you. So that's something to look out for too. And I think that I'm glad that they included that. I'm glad they included that in here because it happens to a lot of people. And last complication is suicide. If you are feeling suicidal, seek help immediately. Do not wait. They will help you without it ruining your life. And I know that's what a lot of people worry about. Like, you're starting to have these thoughts and you don't know what to do. And generally, you don't do anything. And by the time you really, really need help, you've already made your decision that you're going to end your life. So I would recommend that if you're starting to identify where, like, oh man, I need to talk to somebody, that's you reaching out to yourself, saying, I go find somebody to talk to because I'm starting to think these heavy negative patterns. Go seek help immediately. Do not worry. They're not going to destroy your life for having a mental health issue. You're very, very protected with mental health issues. So you're not going to lose your job or anything like that. Or at least if you work for me, you won't. Even though I got to deal with Shauna all the time. She's a mental health trigger all the time. She makes me want to go crazy. See if she's paying attention still. So prevention's huge. So there's no way to predict for certain what will cause someone to develop an anxiety disorder, but you can take steps to reduce the impact of symptoms if you're anxious. Get help early. She has blamed it on me that I bother her. No, she bothers me with her attitude all the time. But the key, get help early. You're not going to defeat anxiety or control it or keep it stable without seeing it early and dealing with it early. Stay active. Participate in activities that you like doing. Even if you're an antisocial person, if you like movies, watch movies. If you like gaming, game. Do things that you like that make you happy. Stay active. I like to move around and walk. So like I said, I go to the town square down the road and I will just walk around or just sit around and people watch. That makes me happy. It calms me down. Also, I encourage you all to avoid alcohol and drug use when you are in these mental states of anxiety. It's not going to help you. Okay, so treatment wise, I was debating whether or not to cut the show off right now, but I'm going to go ahead and go through the treatments because there's still a lot of information to go over. So there's two main treatments for anxiety disorder. There's psychotherapy and medications. Basically, it's just about the treatment for every situation. You may benefit most from a combination of the two. Generally, yes. It may take some trial and error to discover which treatments work best for you. Absolutely. And this is something a lot of people get confused about. They think, well, I went to therapy, my doctor prescribed me some meds, and I still don't feel good. This doesn't work. That is not the case at all. What it is your body needs dialed in. They got to dial in your meds. So they're going to give you a baseline of what they think you need. So it's going to be up to you to allow those drugs to kick in. And then you have to report back to your doctor and say, this is how I feel, or I don't feel, I'm not happy enough, or I'm getting depressed, or just whatever it is, you have to be honest. So that way they can say, okay, you need a few more milligrams of this, or maybe a few less milligrams of this. They're not going to be able to dial you in. Don't mess with my camera. But you have to let the doctor dial you in. It's very, very important. I can't stress it enough. So psychotherapy is talk therapy or psychological counseling. Psychotherapy involves working with a therapist to reduce your anxiety symptoms. It can be effective treatment for therapy. It is effective. So please give it a try. There's nothing better than dumping your anxiety. You have cognitive behavioral therapy. It's the most effective form of therapy. We've talked about this in almost every episode. But this is going to help for your anxiety disorders, like short-term treatment. You're going to create a treatment plan. They're going to give you coping skills, tools that are going to help you along the way. It's important to do these things. CBT is what they call it. It focuses on teaching you specific skills to improve your symptoms and gradually return to activities you've avoided because of the anxiety. So I highly recommend cognitive behavioral therapy. It's going to be good. Plus, it's going to allow you to learn how to cope on your own and not have to rely on mental health professionals to get you out of every single little situation you get in. CBT includes exposure therapy, in which you gradually encounter the object or situation that triggers your anxiety, so you build confidence that you can manage the situation and anxiety symptoms. Now, we've talked about this in the past, so it's just like what I talked about earlier, where I get into a smaller, controllable setting, and I allow myself to get used to that traffic, and to where, next few times I may go to a little bit more of a busier place. So I'm facing those anxiety-ridden things that trigger me, to where now I don't have a problem being in like small settings or medium-sized settings. I've kind of conditioned my brain to eliminate that trigger for anxiety. So that's basically what that means. I hope you guys understand what I'm just saying right there, because that's gonna help. I mean, I don't recommend if your anxiety revolves around like rattlesnakes. I don't expect you to go, oh, okay, I'm going to get a little bit closer today, and last I'm going to pick the rattlesnake up. No, you're probably going to get bit. So don't do things like that. So medications, there's several types of medications that are used to help relieve symptoms. Depending on the type of anxiety disorders you have, and whether you also have other mental health or physical issues. So they can put you on antidepressants or anxiety to treat your anxiety disorders, or anti-anxiety meds. There's hundreds of them. You could be on benzos or beta blockers, sedatives. There's all kinds of different ways that they can try to medicate you. It just depends on where you're at in your anxiety as to how they are going to treat you. So if you start feeling suicidal, I need you guys to understand that there are suicide hotlines all over the place. There's the National Suicide Hotline, and I'll put those in the comments so that way everybody sees them. And do not hesitate to seek help. Like I said, if the chats are a safe space, we can talk and try to work these things out, or I can give you further information on how to get more help. I do know I have a lot of resources at my disposal, so I will do everything that I can to help you. I know sometimes it's easier to have a perfect stranger to, just sit down and listen. Just listen to people. Let them talk it out. So that's going to be the end of my show for the day. Hopefully everybody understands anxiety disorder a little bit better. I know these drones are giving me anxiety right now. Like they got to tell me something, or I'm going to lose my mind, and I'm probably going to end up checking in. It's not that serious, but it is starting to aggravate me a little bit. I want to know what those drones are. But everybody be safe out there. Please watch your behaviors. Be honest with yourself about your mental condition. I will see you guys next Monday, and we will will announce whatever I'm going to decide to talk about later in the week. All right, I'm out. Peace.